welcome back into the Between the Hashmarks podcast. Another week. Of course, I'm Matt Lombardo, joined as always by my friend, colleague, and mentor, and the purveyor of the Two Deep Zone, Mike Tanier. Mike, what's going on, my friend?
Not much. We had another wild Monday night. We had two games, one of which I cared about. And we have some injuries around the NFL to worry about, which, is I think what we're starting out with today.
Of course, one blowout, one nail biter, as these things tend to go on these doubleheaders of Monday Night Football, and some major injuries to get into. We have a big show ahead, little housekeeping for you. Andre Williams, Heisman Trophy finalist from back in the day, former New York Giants running back, and fellow Parkland High School alum, my alma mater, will join us a little bit later on in the podcast. And if you enjoy the show, please go ahead and subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store, Spotify, subscribe to my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975. And most importantly, make sure you subscribe to Mike Tanier's Two Deep Zone. You'll be a smarter football fan for doing so. Can't recommend it highly enough. And of course, if you enjoy my insight, reporting, and analysis, subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack.
Most importantly.
Yes.
I love how you framed it, though. It was like, one blowout, one nail biter. The nail biter was, A, no one watched, and B, was a mess. It was an absolute mess of a game. I rewatched that Cardinals-Chargers game this morning, and I'm dumber as a result of it.
Yeah, you certainly are. And I did not enjoy whatsoever the Chargers finding new ways to charger within the last 90 seconds of that game. My goodness. I've long been of the belief that Justin Herbert deserves the hype. That defense certainly does not.
And, you look at who he's throwing to, and you look at the guy fumble touchback, like he throws a bomb, guy rolls it out of bounds for a touchback, et cetera. So you can see where Herbert's playing better than the statistics indicate. Score a touchdown, Chargers, score a touchdown against the Cardinals.
Yes.
You're not talking about the 1985 Bears here. We're not talking about the Chiefs. Score a touchdown against the Cardinals, and we'll talk about how, great, misunderstood, whatever Justin Herbert is.
And what a bizarre division the NFC West has turned into. We're going to get into it a couple times during the podcast, but I think the perfect place to start is the injury-riddled San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
Were dealt two pretty significant blows on Sunday. First, Deebo Samuel misses the game. He's on the sidelines, but due to illness, really didn't play a factor. But more importantly, Brandon Ayuk is now lost for the season, torn ACL, and you feel bad for the kid coming off of the contract extension, but at least, that took care of itself going into the year. Yeah. But this is another weapon that the 49ers are down in a season where it looks like this is just a stark reminder that the Super Bowl hangover exists, and maybe playing all of that football over the last 4 or 5 years, it's starting to take a wear and tear toll. But Mike, your initial takeaway and thoughts on that Brandon Ayuk injury and what it means for the Niners.
And what we often talk about as the Super Bowl hangover often is, in the year of the Super Bowl, you guys had unbelievably good luck with health. That happens all the time. Super Bowl teams usually are very, very healthy teams. You can point to exceptions. But then the next year, it's just, injuries are kind of random. More guys get hurt, and maybe they are a little more worn out after playing 3 extra games, whatever. And now we're seeing a 49ers team that has more significant health injuries than anything they really had to deal with, except for maybe a couple of games in the middle of last year, which they lost. McCaffrey is in this, free beer tomorrow type of thing, where every week it seems like he's another week away, and I hope he's okay in the long run, but it's getting more and more like, he's not quite as close as they keep making him out to be. Ayuk is a loss. I don't know what the Deebo situation is. That's probably a minor situation. I'm trying to range find the 49ers right now. Are they still a Super Bowl team? Are they just one of the playoff teams in the NFC, which there's 9, 10 of them? Or are they something else? And that's what I'm having a hard time figuring out right now.
And I'm not sure that we're going to know until December or January just how high or low their ceiling is, because as you alluded to, the NFC is what we thought the AFC was going to be going into this year. Because think back to before the year, everybody talked about how Kansas City was on this destiny to repeat as a 3-time Super Bowl champion. The Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Dolphins, all the Jets, all these teams are going to be, winning 12, 13 games each. They've cannibalized each other. They've gone through issues. Right. Some of them struggling to be 500, some far below 500. But in the NFC, you have the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings look like the cream of the crop, and nothing about that game on Sunday between those two teams changes my mind there. Green Bay is lurking. Philadelphia is Jekyll and Hyde, but when they're Jekyll, they're pretty tough to beat.
Right.
You look at San Francisco, Seattle. I think Seattle is now the favorite in that division, even though they have the loss to the 49ers on the ledger already. San Francisco has the fourth toughest remaining schedule the rest of the way. Seattle, 14th. The Niners are leaking oil. Seattle, if they can stay healthy, I know there's issues now with DK Metcalf, but Kenneth Walker looks like a franchise running back. And even though my brain can't process it, Geno Smith is playing like a top 10 to 12 quarterback in this league.
Geno is playing well. You mentioned the Seahawks schedule moving forward. It might be a little different if you look at DVOA and things like that than record. They've got the Bills coming up. That's a big challenge.
Game.
That's this week. Then they face the Rams, who may have Cooper Kupp back by then. Then they have the bye week. Then they have the Cardinals. And then they have the 49ers. And I think that 49ers game will ultimately decide their fate. But in the NFC, the teams that we thought were okay are playing phenomenal.
Yes.
Teams that we thought were phenomenal are still playing okay. The teams that we thought were pretty bad are pretty good, and there's the Panthers.
Yes, so Mr. Serper and my daughter's Carolina Panthers are the get-right team, the get-right opponent for every team in this league. Right. But as far as the 49ers go, Mike, I think one of the things that will determine their ceiling is John Lynch is one of the more aggressive general managers at the trade deadline and has been for at least the last 4 or 5 years. If you're the Niners, do you look over the landscape and you know that the window is now limited because you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy as one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league this offseason? Are you buyers at the deadline to prop open the window, or do you look around and you say, I got bad vibes all around here. Maybe we sit this out.
Maybe they can trade for Devontae Adams. You're right about Lynch. Obviously, McCaffrey's here because of an aggressive deadline deal, and they've made others in the past. I can see them doing it. I don't hate the idea because there's no tomorrow. The question is, when you start, and I have not studied their salary cap for the years to come. I know they stuck Ayuk on this contract that's really full of trapdoors and labyrinths and things like that. We know Purdy has to get taken care of down the road. That person you have to get almost has to be the rental guy. It almost has to be the Nuke Hopkins. Hey, are you chasing a ring? Because I don't think they can bring a guy in and say, oh, this is somebody who's going to be here for 2 or 3 or 4 years because we can afford to put like $95 million in front of him.
The two names that jump to mind for me, would love your thoughts on the fit. I think that Deontay Johnson would be the short-handed veteran receiver. Yeah. Kind of fits the mold of what they do there. And of course, the Panthers, why would you not sell off every single asset that you own? Well, why wouldn't you not hold the yard sale between now and then? And you mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. You look at the red zone situation. I don't know that Hopkins fits their offense and what they like to do and how they use their receivers, but the Niners are 27th in red zone offense this year. Kind of out of character for them, and losing McCaffrey doesn't help. But 56% of DeAndre Hopkins' touchdowns in his career have come in the red zone. If you're John Lynch, if you're trying to spark something, to me, that's the move you have to make.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't see the Panthers moving Johnson. He is in the first year there, and they're just going to run out of human beings. And I think they don't want to just completely give up the ship. Nuke makes sense there. You talk about the 49ers in the red zone. Well, a part of that was the game their kicker got hurt, so they were going for everything. And again, I don't understand why when their punter kicked a 28-yard field goal, they couldn't do that again, whatever. That was part of it. Shanny in the red zone loves field goals. He loves a 30-yard field goal the way, you and I love pasta. And that is hurting that team right now. I mean, Hopkins would help, but it's a Shanahan state of mind. Jordan Mason's a good running back. You've got a fullback. You still have things that you can do offensively. Stop settling for field goals. Don't settle for field goals against the Kansas City Chiefs. You know you're not going to win in that situation. What did he do before halftime last week? He settles for a field goal from the 6-yard line. That contributes to what kind of turns into a mini blowout against the Chiefs. So I think they should get guys, but I think they have to look internally at who they really are right now. And that's a question Shanahan hasn't really answered, because he's a great coach when he can scheme with all these guys and blow the pants off people. I don't know if he's a great coach in close games.
No, I don't necessarily disagree there. And there's another team that I think is facing some very hard truths in the NFC when they wake up today on Tuesday morning. and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you look at the dichotomy of that game on Monday night, the first two series, Todd Bowles is throwing every disguised blitz package in the book at Lamar Jackson, running every stunt that they can come up with. They run out to that 10-0 lead, and they're playing well, and disaster strikes. And I don't use the term disaster lightly here. Mike Evans catches a touchdown, first touchdown of the game, later gets barrel rolled in the end zone, aggravates a hamstring injury. He's done getting an MRI today.
Right.
And worse yet, Chris Godwin, 42 seconds left in the game. The game is all but decided. Dislocates his ankle, carted off, season over. I feel awful for Godwin. I feel terrible for Evans. But that's a season trajectory changing loss, and not because of the outcome for the Buccaneers.
That's exactly right. And, without Godwin and with like a limited Evans, I almost wipe this team off the table now.
Yeah.
Because that's it. This was a wild card caliber team that was strong because they have one of the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL. And you take that away, suddenly they're just in the soup of these other teams. It's funny though how just about like 2 or 3 weeks ago we were looking at the NFC South and we're like, these guys are surprisingly good. This is a good division. You lose Carr and Olave, and then you lose Godwin, and the Falcons take a loss. And it's like, oh, it's back to normal. This division stinks again. So I mean, that's the saving grace for the Buccaneers. Like, well, we've gone 9-8 and won this division. I think we went 8-1 or something and won this division before. We could do that again. It's still heartbreaking to see a team that looked like they were doing something else this year, and now it looks like that's not going to happen.
For sure. And they were right in the mix with the Falcons in the NFC South race. You could have made an argument that they were the favorites to win that division, even though they lost that overtime heartbreaker in Atlanta earlier this year. But you look at what they had with the weapons, with Mayfield playing the best football of his career, a stingy defense with a lot of playmakers, including Antoine Winfield on the back end playing at a high level. I'm with you. This is a team that if they even go 500 the rest of the way, I think that's going to be a pretty Herculean feat for them. Without Godwin, without Evans in full capacity, it changes Baker Mayfield as a quarterback. Even with those running back, it changes your offense tremendously. It was just a disastrous night in Tampa Bay all around.
Yeah, we're talking about Mayfield playing the best football of his career because of Godwin and Evans, and Liam Cohn doing a great job because of Godwin and Evans. And if you take one of those away, it takes it down. And if we wind up taking both of them away, and again, we're talking about a hamstring for an older player.
Right.
If you take both of them away, that's disastrous for the Buccaneers.
And it wasn't just injuries to older players around the league that wreaked havoc. This really was an injury Sunday across the league in a lot of ways. Jaden Daniels gets knocked from the game. We'll talk about our circlet games later. If you would have asked me on Saturday what my circlet game would have been, it would have been Commanders and Bears. And I had this whole content plan worked up for the Substack Between the Hashmarks, some really cool concepts of, previewing Caleb Williams against Jaden Daniels. That game loses some of its luster when the Commanders lose Jaden Daniels, but still win by 100 points against the Panthers.
Did you injure Jaden Daniels by asking sources around the league to give them some preliminary thoughts on Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels? Did you do that? Did you jinx him by having like this whole like your mini recorder is full? Oh, I got some great stuff as a preview. Is that what happened?
There was a concept of a column. Put it that way.
A concept of a column is fine. That's not a jinx. The jinx is when you've written your Falcons have won the Super Bowl article at halftime, and that's okay.
Been there in the auxiliary press box at NRG Stadium. Been there, done that. I had to watch overtime between the two auxiliary locker room press conference settings because I didn't know where I was assigned to go because of that overtime playing out the way it did. But yes, I think that I'll take a partial jinx for the Jaden Daniels injury because it was some pretty cool stuff in the can.
There was some cool stuff in the can. I'm sorry. You were in the auxiliary press box, not in the tent. I was in the tent.
Oh.
I don't mind the tent.
You don't mind the tent?
You can spread out. You can take like 3 chairs and put your sandwich next to your laptop in the tent. You can kind of hear the stadium. By the way, the tent is now like 3 blocks away. That I would hate. Like I was right outside, and I was able to run during overtime. Well, run. I walked quickly. going overtime.
Yeah, for those who wonder what the hell we're talking about, when you cover the Super Bowl, there are tiers of how media members are viewed. You have everybody who's in the Associated Press and the PFWA, like 2 people per team. They're in the press box. I was there one time inside the press box of the 5 Super Bowls that I've covered. The second tier is you're in like the upper corner of the end zone in the seats with a temporary table set up where you're basically like hunched over like this trying to write your column.
Yes.
That's the auxiliary press box. Yes. And then there's the tent that Mike is describing where you ever go to a graduation party or a wedding and they have the backyard with the tent? They set that up with desks, I assume, in the tent.
You're in with the camera people from Telemundo and BBC and Sky and like and pretty much everybody who doesn't really cover the game and like a dozen of us who are like just not worthy. And I've been in the not worthy tent a couple of times. I don't know what that says about me, but again, I've sort of made it my home because you can actually stretch out there. You've got like 3 TVs, so you can just watch what's going on. And I was only in the hoi polloi Emperor's press box twice, but once I took Joe Posnanski's seat because he had just left Sports Honor, so I
took a spot. You wedged your way in there.
I snuck in with his credential, so don't tell anybody. I'll be uncredentialed for life.
Yeah, Jerry Eisenberg for NJ Advanced Media had covered every Super Bowl until Super Bowl 54.
Okay, and
that was Chiefs and Niners in Miami. His seat was gone, so Giants beat writer Matt Lombardo got bumped in.
Nice.
Steve Politi. That was my one time in the press box covering the Super Bowl. Very cool experience there.
It's heaven. It's heaven up there. The catering is always going.
Yes, better food than the turkey and cheese in the box.
What were we talking? We were talking about Jaden Daniels.
On the periphery of the Super Bowl conversation were the Commanders before the Jaden Daniels injury. How do you see the NFC East playing out now with Daniels potentially banged up, deemed a week-to-week rib injury?
Well, first of all, I hope they take their time with him, that they don't RG3 him, and I think they will. I'm kind of penciling in a loss against the Bears with Marcus Mariota out there because Marcus Mariota is not good at football.
Right.
And then I could see a win at the Giants. And then I think we're at the window where we could see Jaden Daniels back. So, I still think the Eagles are going to crawl away with this division because they're pretty good and they can sort of out-talent a lot of the second-rate teams on their schedule as they did to the Giants this week. I still think the Commanders are probably a wild card team. I still think they're in there. Like you said earlier, the Seahawks cannot be brushed off. But I think the one thing we can brush off now is we're not going to see a wild card out of the NFC South. That was a possibility. There's going to be room in the conversation now for some of these other teams. And I think the Commanders are going to stay one of those teams for the rest of the year. What do you think?
I still think it's a bit of a 2-horse race in the NFC East, but not between the Eagles and Cowboys, which we would have thought going into the year. I spoke to a couple sources who told me they don't think that the Cowboys can get healthy quickly enough to be competitive with all the injuries they have. Plus, there's the issue of there still being longstanding growing pains along that defense from learning Mike Zimmer's scheme and the run fits that they have to do compared to what Dan Quinn did. So I think you take the Cowboys and put them on a shelf over here. But I think that the Commanders still, with all of the talent on offense, the defense kind of playing above expectations, as long as we're not talking about this being a 3, 4, 5 week injury for Jaden Daniels,
right, I
still think they're good enough to catch the Eagles at their worst and knock them off and take a division win there. Now, all of a sudden, the division's a coin flip, in my opinion, because I still think the Eagles are somewhere in between what they did on Sunday against the Giants and what they playing down to a non-existent Cleveland Browns offense, where if you play at that level against a team that can score 20 points per game, do it at least once in a year, which the Browns still haven't done, you can get upset.
Right. I think the game we're looking for is week 11, Commanders at Eagles. You need Daniels back.
Yes.
And if Daniels back, you're in position to do these things. If you're futzing around with Marcus Mariota at that point, first of all, you probably will have taken a loss to the Steelers as well. And second of all, I think the Eagles have no problem in that situation. So that's your goal, I think, to have Daniels back for that game.
Yep. And I think that when you look at Philadelphia, they were at their best on Sunday, even though so I wrote it in the column.
Mhm.
Anecdotally, it felt like that was what that offense was always supposed to be. Saquon Barkley, Saquon Barkley, Saquon Barkley, and A.J. Brown.
Mhm.
You dive into the numbers. Bizarrely enough, for as impressive as Saquon Barkley does, the 176 rushing yards and the touchdown, A.J. Brown had the big touchdown catch, the deep ball that you expect from him as arguably the most important player on that roster.
Mhm.
Like, there wasn't a wide receiver not named A.J. Brown who recorded a single receiving yard against the Giants.
Yeah. Now, part of that is I am glad that when the Eagles realized the running game was going to work, they simply committed to it. That it wasn't like, well, let's try and like open up the playbook more. No, we're winning this game. Let's put it down. Let's just grind it down the field. They tried to get the ball to Devontae once or twice. I think one got batted out of his hands. Devontae's going to get his touches. Still worry about this team's the complete disappearance of Jahan Dotson from any relevance whatsoever. The fact that without Dallas Goedert, they don't get anything from tight ends. And like the sort of mentality for Jalen Hurts, where it seems like if he can't get the ball to AJ Brown deep, he wants to run or he wants to hold on to that. And I still think there are opportunities for shorter passes in this offense, and he's a very reluctant check downer.
Right. And I think that, the Saquon Barkley effect is not only is Saquon inevitable, but as I spoke to an NFL offensive coach on Sunday after that game, he told me, quote, you knew this kind of a game was coming for Saquon. You're seeing Saquon's impact in the game. His presence lightens the box, which means that wide receivers get open down the field more often, and the whole thing ties together. We saw that a little bit against Cleveland, but the other big plays didn't really materialize against the Giants.
Right.
I think the Eagles still need more out of Devonta Smith. As you said, they need significantly more out of Jahan Dotson. But they also need Dallas Goedert to get healthy, because when you add Goedert back into that mix, all of a sudden the middle of the field opens up a little bit more because of the attention that safeties and linebackers have to pay Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, you can say, well, if Dotson's a non-factor, that's fine with Goedert. If Goddard's hurt, that's fine because Calcaterra and Dotson are compensating. This team reached the Super Bowl with running and sideline bombs. They reached the Super Bowl. So there's a method of doing that. It's just you need multiple paths for victory. That team also got like 70 sacks that year. Okay. And you're not getting the pass rush. The defense is coming around, which is good. But again, they face two very weak opponents, we got to say. Big test for the Eagles against the Bengals. They can't assume that the defense is going to shut everything down. It's not like there's one guy to stop, which is what there was with Malik Neighbors last week. And we'll get a better sense finally of the Eagles' floor and ceiling, I think, on Sunday.
For sure. And the Bengals are one of those teams that's the needle is starting to tick to the upwards a little bit, especially after playing the New York Giants, everybody's get-right opponent, not named the Carolina Panthers. But we have an awesome guest and a fun conversation with a former New York Giant playmaker, a fellow Parkland High School alum hailing from my neck of the woods in the fighting Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Andre Williams joins us, and you can follow Andre on Threads at DreWill44. Andre, how's it going, man?
I'm good, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on the show with you and Mike. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're happy to have you here. And unfortunately, it's kind of a tough Tuesday morning for the New York Giants after Saquon Barkley goes back into MetLife Stadium, runs all over his former team for 176 yards and a touchdown. What was your reaction when the Giants decided not to bring Saquon back this offseason? And based on the first 7 or 8 games of this year, what's the biggest impact that you see Saquon making on that Eagles offense right now?
You said we coming on a tough Tuesday. We almost coming up to a tough decade for the Giants because I was drafted back in 2014. It's now 2024, and I see the Giants languishing in the same mistakes that they were making back when I was still playing. So, I was honestly I was rooting for Saquon on Sunday. I watched the game. Of course, I watched that game because Saquon, he's a Lehigh Valley legend just like myself, and he's still building his legacy. So I want to see him build that up as high as he can. And I wanted to see him ball. I wanted to see him bust it open on him because when you get drafted by a team, it's like it's like it's your first girlfriend and you love her so much and so hard that like the feeling is visible. It's like a color.
Yeah.
And just by the way he carried himself while he was with the Giants, you could tell that that's exactly how he felt about the New York Giants. And they drafted him in the first round. So, obviously they really saw his value. And when he came to the league, you've seen that value shine through. If you got Saquon on your team, you're guaranteed 1,000 all-purpose yards and double-digit touchdowns. And he did it season after season. He had an injury season. It happens, but he came back and he's still that guy. So to see him walk away from that team, and now I'm looking at it. I don't know. I'm sure you guys are big statistics guys. I played with a couple first-round picks. I came in with Odell. We had Jason Pierre-Paul on the squad at the time. There was another one. I didn't play with Kadarius Toney, but Kadarius Toney was a first-round pick. What do all those guys have in common right now? First-round picks that got Super Bowl rings with other teams.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they keep letting this, and I can't say that they all are on the same value level, but Kadarius did ball out and get himself a Super Bowl ring, and he was an integral part of that win because that punt return that he got against the Eagles, that put him in a position to go ahead and get that scored. So I'm saying they keep letting all of this talent walk out the door, all of this value walk out the door, because I think the mentality is wrong over there. They have this win right now mentality, and they're trying to get the right guys in the room to win right now rather than build a culture. You know what I'm saying? You can't overplay or underplay, whatever the proper phrase is, the culture of a team. Culture makes the team, and the team is what wins the championship. I'm saying it could be as much value in the room as you want to, but you need a team. And Saquon was he was the seat of culture in that locker room. He was the oldest player there, and the entertainment value that you get from a Saquon Barkley is undeniable. So when you're looking at that locker room now, you got a bunch of young guys, no real identity on that offense. And we want to just keep giving Daniel Jones excuses, hoping that something is going to pan out and that money was worth it. So, I'm obviously upset, but it is what it is.
It sounds like you're a little bit of a Daniel Jones skeptic too, based on what you said at the end there.
I'll say it like this.
Okay.
The role of the QB is to get the ball in the hands of his receivers, in the hands of his targets. You know what I'm saying? I don't see that happening enough. You know what I'm saying? I've seen a lot of overthrown balls in the, should be, highly accurate passes, overthrown ball in the flat to Wan'Dale Robinson. I never seen Eli overthrow the ball to me in the flat, and I wasn't even catching that well. But that was his superpower. He had touch. Even somebody like me came into the league, came out of college, Boston College, over 2,000 yards rushing and 0 receptions. You know what I'm saying? But I came in with Eli, and he made me look good. You know what I'm saying? I got a C note worth of receiving yards in his legacy. So he was getting the job done. He was getting the job done, and I don't see it from Daniel Jones. You know what I'm saying? So I'm watching. I am a fan. Of course, I got my gripes, but I'm watching and hoping that they can turn it around and fix it. I don't see it happening anytime soon, though.
And they've
Now,
got
you and I crossed paths a little bit when I was on the Giants beat for NJ.com. I think that I was in that locker room, maybe your final year in a Giants uniform. But I still remember my final story for NJ.com was this long-standing enterprise story about why the Giants can't build an offensive line, that it had been a decade. Now, this was in the 2019 season, so we're going on a decade and a half of offensive line failures. And obviously, you played running back at a really high level, so you understand the value of offensive linemen. Why is it such a struggle? Because obviously they let Saquon Barkley walk out the door, and you heard Bill Belichick say, they went and they signed a guard. But they also drafted Evan Neal, who's been banged up and a disappointment. But other than Andrew Thomas, they don't really have a great offensive line. Why do you think that's been such a struggle for that organization going back now, You said a decade of misery. Maybe it's been 15, 20 years of trying to build an elite offensive line in New York.
Like I said, I think that there are teams that have this mentality that we're going to develop our players, we're going to build a team culture, and there's some teams that are just like, no, we're going to win right now, we're going to win today, and I guess it starts in the draft. I didn't watch the last draft too closely, but the draft before that, I seen them pick up a offensive lineman. I believe they picked up offensive lineman in the first round, and then they went and picked up a D lineman in the second round. I thought they needed to draft two. They needed two. They was missing stuff, So I think year after year, you're supposed to focus on the one thing that long term is going to give you the most benefit. Even in respect to Saquon, maybe that wasn't the right first round pick. I'm saying,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that he's not a generational talent. I get why you made the pick, but for the Giants and what they needed at the time, I don't know. I don't think it was proper, but they should have been investing in that O-line for years, and they have not. They're at a deficit of about 5-6 years worth of picks that they should have been focused on something different.
I also want to get your thoughts on some of the top running backs around the league, Andre, because you obviously understand that position. Starting with Derrick Henry and what he did on Monday night in Tampa Bay, had a quiet night through three quarters, all of a sudden busts out in the fourth quarter, 82-yard run, takes over the game, over 176 rushing yards. Has there ever been a better marriage between skill set, the mentality of a franchise, and the scheme than dropping Derrick Henry alongside Lamar Jackson in the Ravens backfield?
I mean, they know what they're doing over there. They know what they're doing over there. And, it happens like that. You have a big back like that, and everybody in that first drive is like, yo, we got to take care of this guy. We can't let him run loose. We got to gang tackle him. Don't let him knock you out with that knee. You know what I'm saying? And so the first couple drives, you're not going to get much, but you don't want to keep doing it again and again and again, And so when you have so many dynamic weapons on your offense, at some point, something is going to break. Somebody's going to make a mistake, and you're going to see Derrick Henry become the king. And you've seen Lamar. When you have talent like that in your backfield, you want to play for him. You want to go run and block for him. Not supposed to be doing that. Save yourself, man. But hey, they got to win the game. So, and that's another guy where I'm like, man. Look at Derrick Henry. Did he come out of school like that? No. But he went to the Titans and they saw something inside of him and they smoothed him and they shaped him and they fed him and he became the king. You know what I'm saying? So they in that Titans offense, I forget who the head coach was at the time, but they played their game. They ran that ball, and they built something around that guy until he was ready to mature into the person that he is today. And the Ravens, of course, they seen that talent. They snatched it up because they knew what they were trying to do.
It was Vrabel, so he's a very old school,
Yeah.
old-fashioned, disciplined guy. Who's your favorite back to watch right now? Is it Henry or is it somebody else?
I like watching Henry. I think that the Falcons have a great 1-2 punch with Algier and I believe it's Robinson. Who else? I also love watching the 49ers, not just because of their running back. And I know McCaffrey is out right now, but overall, I love watching that offense. I think it's one of the most versatile in the league. I love watching them play, and you seeing how they are still able to utilize the fullbacks and tight ends so fully in that offense. I just like to watch a good game. I'm not necessarily a fan of any one team per se, apart from those teams that I have personal experience with. But I just like watching a good game, and of course, I like watching my position.
And one of the best games this weekend was Vikings-Lions. I don't know if you guys see much of that, but that was just a
I
shootout down
missed
to
it.
the wire. 4 different lead changes in the second half. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of my favorite running backs to watch across the league, really took that game over after Aaron Jones, had a big run to kick things off. But there was a run by Jahmyr Gibbs where he broke like 7 tackles. Looked like he left some broken ankles of defenders in his wake that if you close your eyes, it's like, wow, that's Barry Sanders up there. Like it was that impressive of a run. When you look at the Lions, when you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, what makes that offense so hard to beat? Because that Dan Campbell led Lions team, they're just relentless.
I think that they're very well coached. Dan Campbell, he takes his time to say what it is that he has to say, and I think that finally is showing itself on the field. But I think his whole staff is doing a great job. I think Ben Johnson, their OC, I believe he's going to be a head coach soon, and I think that Dan Campbell is going to miss him dearly. And I know Ben Johnson. He was a coach at BC back in the day when I was there. So it's just funny to see. It's great to see people's their journeys through this game.
Absolutely.
That's cool. That's another team, by the way, that invested a lot in their offensive line and made a commitment for years. But what were your impressions of Ben Johnson when he coached you, or when he coached at BC?
He always had a smile on his face. He had a very gentle disposition, and it's like one of those guys that when they get mad, you kind of laugh a little bit, because it's like, oh, he's mad. That's funny, because he's just always happy, always got this gentle spirit to him. So I'm sure that those guys definitely love listening to him in the meeting room.
That's got to be a contrast to Dan Campbell, who's out there biting ankles and ranting and raving. Having a calmer guy as a lieutenant probably helps.
Yeah, you got a good cop, bad cop. Yep.
Yeah.
So Andre, if you were a general manager and you're putting on your team building hat, who's the running back that you would love to build an offense, a roster, and a franchise around right now?
Man, I mean, just because he's hometown hero for me right now is Saquon. I think that Saquon is, like I said, I think he's a generational talent, man. And I'm sure there's other backs around the league, but him personally just being so close. Like I'm in Whitehall right now. I'm talking to you from Whitehall, Pennsylvania. So I think that would be very exciting. And I'm looking at this Eagles offense. I'm like, man. On paper, they got all the answers. The only thing that I see missing is that they don't make any plays in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. How come they don't have Jahan running any slants or digs? Or maybe they need to get Saquon in that slot position and have him work the middle, maybe some angles and some Texas routes. I feel like that's the one missing piece that would make their offense. It's missing that thing, they haven't been able to score a touchdown in the first quarter, so I don't know. I'm on the couch coaching. But I think that would be exciting just because that's hometown right now. And we have somebody like that here with us in Philly. But like I said, Derrick Henry, that's another one that it's just like, oh man, I wonder what we would really be able to do if we could. They might win the Super Bowl. They got a good team like that. So I would say Derrick just because I appreciate a big back. I would say Saquon just because he is super versatile. And like I said, I like those guys over there with the Falcons. They got a great 1-2 punch, and those guys are really young. They got a lot of tread left on tires. So if we don't get it this year, maybe we get it next year,
Trust me, when it comes to Eagles, we are all coaching from the couch every single week. Most of us are saying, run the damn ball, but I like some Texas routes as well.
Yeah.
I know you got a book out. Tell us about the book.
Yep. So I just published a book last month. I actually have a copy here. It's called After the Last Snap: When the Game Ends, Life Begins. And this is my memoir. It's a memoir, my life from about 0 to 30. And I had an idea to write this book back in college. I knew I had a philosophy that I wanted to share with people, but I didn't have the life experience to really write a solid book, and that's what I realized. I was writing. I'm like, well, what am I really trying to say? But I hadn't lived it out yet to figure out what it is that I needed to say. So I had a customer of mine. I had a denim store out here in Center Valley, Pennsylvania. I'm selling my jeans, and had a customer come in by the name of Eric Bartos. And Eric also is an author, and he has a self-help book. The name of his book is it's called Bar 40. He has a book called Bar 40, and so he comes out with a new edition of this self-help book every year. And that particular year, he asked me to come up with a quote. He had a quote section in the book. He wanted to add a quote from me. So I got a copy of the book on Amazon, and I read it, and I came up with a quote and sent it to him. And he's like, Dre, this quote is so good. I gotta put it somewhere where everybody can see. It's the best quote I got. So he ended up publishing the book, and he put the quote on the cover of the book.
Wow.
So, I was really honored by that, to the point where I'm like, man, I said I was gonna write a book. And if he thinks so much of that one quote, I need to finish my book because I feel like people really appreciate what I gotta say. So, and it was a self-help book, how to have the best year of your life. And it
Okay.
was the simple things that I already knew about. You need to eat good food, you need to sleep proper, you need to plan your day out, and you have to exercise. So I'm
Mhm.
like, sure, I'm doing all of those things, but I guess I'm half stepping because I have not done what I said I was going to do. So I just took it upon myself last year, January, and I said I'm gonna work on this book every day until it's done, and I'm gonna finish it in 2023. And sure enough, by December, I think it was December 14th, I was on the last chapter of the book, and I finished it. I reached out to him, and he linked me up with he had a publishing coach that teaches you how to self-publish a book, and they'll help you do certain things. Signed up with them, and we got it done in September 5th. I think it dropped on Amazon and Kindle. And it's honestly, I really took my time with it. I feel like it is not just a story. I wanted to write it in an artful way, and I think that the story is good because I've done things that most people are never going to do. I met people most people will never meet. I was sitting at the Heisman with all the Heisman winners, and all of those type of experiences that when I was actually going through it, life was moving at 180 miles an hour. I was moving
Right.
so fast I wasn't able to comprehend. And so when I actually sat back and thought about how, what, where, why, that was actually a very therapeutic and cathartic experience for me. It was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. One of the best exercises I've ever done was writing that book. And actually editing the book was harder than actually writing it, because you have something, and the editor comes and he's like, "Well, actually, I think you should write it like this." And I'm like, "Nah,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound good. It's too wordy. It's too this. It's too that."
Mhm.
And you have to go back through. And I felt like I wrote the book 3 times. You know what I'm saying? Just because going back and forth with the editor. But overall, made it a better book. Just because there's certain things, like there's a moment here and there's a moment here, and in between you just have to write a bridge, and you write a flimsy bridge in the beginning, but then after you go through the editing process, you smooth everything over and make it one complete story, and there's no gaps. So I really enjoyed writing it, and I think it has a lot of lessons. As I said, I've been places, met people, spent a lot of stupid money, and learned a lot of hard lessons, and it's all in the book.
That's awesome. And you said you're in Whitehall, PA right now. There was
Mhm.
a restaurant on Ruppsville Road in Allentown, around the corner from the house I grew up in, that my buddies and I would always, that was our like night before Thanksgiving hangout spot. But I'm told, someone told me that that's no longer a restaurant, and that Andre Williams had much bigger, better plans for the property. What do you have going on up there in the Lehigh Valley right now? What are you working on?
I don't have plans for that property. I'm part of the plans at the property. There's a really cool group of guys that ended up taking that spot. It was a Rascals, right? That it previously was, and now it's a training facility. It's called Sports Factory. So I had a friend that was doing a football camp over there, and he asked me to come and spend some time with his kids, and I did. Ended up meeting the owner, and the owner said his name is Chris. It's Chris, Matt, and Anthony, the three owners of the spot. And Chris was like, "Hey, man, we're trying to, we're young, we're trying to, as a business, and we're trying to attract a higher level of athlete like yourself into our spot and just grow and become well known in the area. You could come in and do whatever it is that you want to do, you know?" And so at the time, I was not really thinking about training because, as I told you, I have my my denim company, and I'm kind of at an inflection point with the denim company where I realized that my suppliers, they can't serve me at my size, so I'm realigning my supply chain with an American manufacturer that, we have a project on the table. I need to do a couple things first. So when I came to that realization, I'm like, you know what? I really have a couple passions in life. One of them is sports and fitness, and the other one is business. And I need to find a way to go ahead and uh, gel that together. And people are always like, "Dre, why don't you get into coaching? You're inspirational. You can really do a lot for these kids." I'm like, yo, I spent so much time in the game that I understand exactly what that life is like. I have kids right now, they're 6 and 8 years old. I want to be able to spend time with my kids and invest in them. And that
Yeah.
coaching life, man, the players are in the game, but the coaches are really, really, really living it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to coach, but I do want to train. I want to come across the next Saquon and give him something. When I was playing ball, I had a torn labrum from my rookie season, and my shoulder was falling out of the socket. It was subluxing, coming in and out of the socket. And I know you've seen me play, man. Like I run hard. This
Right.
is a gun. This is like a shotgun.
Like your shield too. Yeah.
So if it's misfiring, I'm in trouble. I'm not me. And I met this guy, and he's like, "Anything in your body that's messed up, I could fix it. If you break your brain, I can't fix that, but anything else is easy."
Right.
And he kept saying that it's easy, it's easy. And I was telling him, like, the doctors, they told me my shoulder really can't be fixed, blah, blah, blah. I can maintain it. They gave me these silly exercises. It wasn't really doing anything. And he's like, "Yeah, it's easy. You can fix that." So I was like, "Well, what do I got to do to work with you?" I'm this off season. I just had my rookie season. I had a great rookie season, but I'm hurting. And he said, "Well, if you want it, I want it more. I'll come pick you up and we'll train anywhere you want to." So he picked me up at my townhouse and we go over to Quest Diagnostics Training Center and we would train. I trained with this guy for 23 days straight, and I never had another incident with my shoulder. Never had another subluxation incident with my shoulder. Fixed it off of just exercise and nutrition. We work out 2, 3 hours and he's like, "All right, let's go eat." We go eat some Asian food over there on Broad Street in Palisades Park. And it just blew my mind. It revolutionized my thinking in a way that the body works. And I trained under this guy for 4 years. I picked up as much information as I can. And now that's all I do, because, I could tell you stories and stories about just the things that I was able to do that, like, even guys that are playing now, they don't want to work out with me. They're like, "Nah, he's doing too much," and I don't lift any weights, but I'm still relevant. I'm still current. I'm still strong as I've ever been. So, and that's this martial arts training that he taught me. I didn't learn any kicking and punching, but just the philosophy of the martial arts. They think about the body in a totally different way. So I made my own practice, and I have a fitness club. I call it the AW Fitness Club. I'm working out of the Sports Factory out there right now. They just acquired another piece of property, and it's like a big garage type barn house type thing. And they're like, you were gonna have extra space, and if you would like to work out of there, you could definitely do that. So I'm building something there now. That's my in-person. I'm also building an online fitness business, and I would really like that in-person fitness business to evolve into something a little bigger. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no sports agency out here in the Lehigh Valley. You know what I'm saying? In a sports agency, because I've been as high as you could go in professional sports, apart from winning a Super Bowl or something. I don't have any rings, but I've been through all the processes. And I could probably call my agent up right now and he'd probably pick up, you know what I'm saying? So I know exactly what they're supposed to do. You don't really need to be a lawyer to be an agent. You need to be able to pass a test, learn some information. But that's just one thing, is being able to, sign some paperwork for some guy, check out the paperwork, make sure everything is legit. That's one thing. The second thing that you're supposed to be able to do as an agent is provide them training and rehabilitation services so that they could, recover, get to where they need to go. And the third thing that most of the agencies are not doing is helping the athlete build their brand. You know what I'm saying? Show them what it means to be marketable,
Right.
and create content for them, so that they could build that brand and garner more marketing deals, because that's going to help your client, but it's also going to help the agency, because every time you sign that deal, that's 20% to the agency. You know what I'm saying? So if you can cover all three of those factors, then you got a sports agency that's doing above and beyond what most people are doing. And then in terms of the training itself, Pro Style Training has 4 pillars. You need the training. I already have unique special training. Then you need the nutrition. I know how to eat properly, and then you need the waterworks. You need a facility
Right.
that has the sauna, the steam room, the hot tub, the cold tub, all of those things, that's that hydrotherapy, that hydrostatic pressure that's going to help your body recover and build itself up. And then the last thing is the body manipulation. You need to be able to you need chiropractic work sometimes. You need massage, you need acupuncture. All of those things definitely are very effective. So I'm networking right now. I'm meeting people. I'm seeing who has what kind of skills. I just went to this networking event the other day. I met one lady, Yulia Semenovich. She has a spot in Bethlehem called Elixir, where she's doing hyperbaric oxygen chambers. I know exactly what that is. Very beneficial to an athlete. There's another lady that does cranial decompression massage, and this is something that is going to help you if you have concussions, you have head injuries. It's supposed to help you recover from those things. Very, very necessary, So I'm trying to find people, put it together to where we could actually have a network that can operate as a sports agency in the Lehigh Valley, because there's so much talent out here, and it's a melting pot. You got Jersey, New York, Philly, and everything is funneling here in the Lehigh Valley. It's just culture is building here, and they're going to keep producing athletes. And I want to be able to help them in some way.
Building an empire, and especially with the NIL era underway, with all those high schools up there, you could really be what the gateway to get these kids up to the next level at a higher level. How can people find out more?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I have a website. I made it very simple. Website is drewill.com, DREWILL.com. From there, that's like my main hub right now. I got a couple newsletters that I'm building there, so I can, continue to feed you information. You can sign up and subscribe on the website free of charge, or you can do a paid subscription if you're interested in the fitness club. If you want to buy a book, you can buy a book there. And I'm also active with my AW Selvage clothing company is on there as well. So that's my main hub that I'm building right now.
Awesome. Got to get me some jeans. I got to check out the denim company. And Andre, before I let you go, just a heartfelt thank you. You were at a fall festival near my house, took a few minutes, took pictures with my kids, signed autographs. Couldn't have been more gracious. We appreciate the time today and the conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out in the community over the weekend and the impact you had on my family as well.
I appreciate that, man. Like I said, it's always honor for me to be able to inspire that next generation, man. I have kids now, and I know that those kids is real. That's your legacy, and if you're really interested in building a legacy, it's not just your kids, but it's just kids in general because they are the future, So thank you.
He's Andre Williams, former Heisman Trophy finalist, former New York Giant, entrepreneur, empire builder in the Lehigh Valley. You can follow him on Threads at DreWill44. Andre, appreciate the time, my man. We'll talk to you further up the road.
Yes, you guys, Matt and Mike, you guys have a blessed afternoon, and I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Mike, that was a lot of fun, and I love what he's doing up there in the Lehigh Valley. And as I mentioned to him, the NIL and what that's going to mean for high school kids going to the college level with all those high schools up there, best of luck to Andre there.
Absolutely. And I think increasingly these young players need almost like life coaching at this point, because you are coming out at 18 and 19, and now you're bombarded with this many physical demands. Now you have financial demands, et cetera. And you want good people involved in nurturing these young careers, not somebody who might be a little opportunistic.
And Andre Williams certainly checks that box. You look around the league, to get it back to football here, the AFC we thought was going to be this gauntlet. We touched on it earlier in the podcast. Hasn't really developed, but it seems like there are the haves and then there are the have-nots. And the haves are pretty damn good.
Yeah, haves are good. It's really, I've been saying the bottom has fallen out of the AFC. In the NFC, you can write off the Giants, you can write off the Panthers, and that's practically it. In the AFC, you can just start writing off, goodbye Titans.
Goodbye Cleveland.
Goodbye Cleveland. Goodbye Titans. Goodbye Patriots. Goodbye Raiders, et cetera. And there's more and more teams get added to that list every week or two. But the top, you have these elite teams. And, I went into Monday thinking, well, it's either the Ravens or the Chiefs are the team to beat, and the Bills. And and the Bills featuring it's like Kaylee Hartung coming in on the side after they say Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit on the Thursday night broadcast. Look at the Monday night game, and it's like this Ravens team looks like it's on a mission.
It really does. And I think, and I wrote this on Threads on Monday night, I really believe the Ravens are the most complete team in the NFL, and certainly in the AFC. And, I texted my father that right after I, posted it, and he goes, "Oh, until they reach the second round of the playoffs." And of course, that's when all of the comments echoing the postseason failures for the Ravens started coming into the post.
Right.
But this feels different. This Baltimore team feels different. They're number one in total offense, number one in rushing defense. And to me, the biggest reason why this Ravens team can be different than all those teams that lost in the divisional round, even last year coming up short against the Kansas City Chiefs, those teams didn't have Derrick Henry. And we're seeing the direct impact that Derrick Henry has on that offense, on Lamar Jackson, on their ability to flip a game on its ear with a single carry, as he did on Monday night. Those other Ravens teams also had a slightly less experienced Rashad Bateman, a slightly less experienced Zay Flowers. And this team is in its second year in Todd Monken's offense as an offensive coordinator, with Lamar Jackson playing the most mature football of his career. So, look, I can make an argument that the Chiefs are the team to beat because of Patrick Mahomes, because they're playing defense at an elite level, especially against the run. But I keep coming back to what I see every week from the Baltimore Ravens. I just don't know what derails them right now.
Yeah, the whole, they'll get to the playoffs and lose. Hey, you know what you can do that joke for? Every team but the Chiefs in the AFC. They're going to lose to the Chiefs. The Bills, Steelers, Great. That's wonderful. What else have you got for us? Like something that has analysis based on it. Henry is like a margin of error increaser / disaster eliminator, because late in these games, he helps you seal out those victories. And 3rd and 1, he helps you seal that. We've seen it overtime against the Bengals. He's the one who has the big run that sets up the field goal. Big run yesterday. We've seen these goal line plays where he's carrying the defense across the goal line for 2 yards. It's like, it's a 2-yard touchdown. Go back in Ravens history from 2019 to 2023 and find out how many 2-yard touchdowns they left on the table, because they didn't have, they always had their 4th string running back out there. They're trying to do like a dipsy-do triple option or something like that, which isn't the best use of Lamar Jackson. They've eliminated some of those problems, which is great. Now, the issue is, I think the Ravens are the best team. You mentioned everything. They're number 1 in DVOA right now for Aaron Schatz's DVOA. The number 1 team with the best odds to reach the playoffs, be the number one seed in the AFC playoffs is, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's what you're up against right now because the Chiefs have a nothing schedule.
Right.
An absolute nothing. Like this was their test last week, and everybody got hurt for the 49ers. They play the Raiders this week. This is a team I don't think they're going undefeated. That's going to go out there and they're going to be 14-3 with their flaws, with their problems, and they're going to be home field advantage. While the Ravens will be battling every week against the Steelers and against the Bengals to get where they need to be, as good as they are.
No, and I don't disagree with that. And I think that, the caveat to everything that I said about the Ravens and kind of poo-pooing the idea that the postseason failures won't come home to roost.
Yeah.
If they have to go to Arrowhead, which it seems like that's where this is heading, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. I'm not betting against Steve Spagnuolo against Lamar Jackson. I'm not betting against Andy Reid, out coaching Todd Monken and Jim Harbaugh and that coaching staff. The Chiefs find ways to beat you. And I spoke to a scout on Sunday after the game, and he said, it's not necessarily, yes, they're finding ways to win, but it's nothing new for them because dating back to last year, they've been winning with defense, and they have an elite defense this year that allows their offense, quote, to be mid, unquote. And, this is me now. If I'm a Chiefs fan and I'm watching that game and how it played out in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes has a passer rating of 44, 35 through much of the fourth quarter. They're banged up. They have me, you, and my uncle catching passes at wide receiver. But they won the game.
Yes.
Right? And they find ways to beat you, and that they can win when Patrick Mahomes is at his worst in the passing game. That's really bad news for the rest of the league.
Right. They're exceptional on defense. And it's time to really look at, not just Chris Jones, but Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis and their linebackers and see how good they really are. They're strong on the offensive line, and people will criticize their offensive line because they don't have any running backs and don't have anybody to throw to. You'll see some sacks. You'll see some stuffs. The offensive line is making it so Kareem Hunt and Noah Gray and these other guys can manufacture what they do. And that makes it a strong team. And we're left with both the way the AFC was under Brady's dominance for 20 years and like the way the NBA was under Jordan's dominance years back. We'll have these teams that are well balanced, well put together, and you'll say, yeah, but they haven't won anything. The Indiana Pacers, Reggie Miller didn't win anything. They're just banging their heads into a brick wall constantly. I think the Ravens are good enough to get through that brick wall, but everything in terms of schedule and in terms of how things are going to play out is going to be stacked against them in the weeks to come.
No doubt about it. Who's your circle game this weekend?
I believe I put down the Cowboys against the 49ers.
Two teams that haven't really won anything.
Two teams that haven't really won it. That's just trolling 49ers fans. Cowboys are used to this right now, and they've earned it. 49ers getting to the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl with the lead all the time. Let's not troll them too hard. But yeah, and this is almost like the knockout round for are you the Super Bowl contender anymore? I don't think the loser of this team can look at themselves. I think the loser of this team, the vibes were going to be horrible, and the locker room's going to be even worse than it is right now. But they've got to look themselves in the mirror and say, this is not the year for us. This might be the year for the Vikings or the Lions or the Eagles or the Seahawks or whoever, but they need to win this game to stay in that conversation with the best teams. What about you?
I have Bills Seahawks, and these are two really intriguing teams, in my opinion, because I think that with Buffalo, you're going to get a real glimpse, a real test against a real defense of this new look passing attack around Josh Allen. Keon Coleman broke out 125 yards. Amari Cooper, his impact was felt kind of creating that space. So his first catch was a touchdown reception from Josh Allen. But if the Seahawks win this game, to me, they're in the driver's seat in the NFC West. Now, I know it's not a conference game. It's not a division game. But if you knock off Josh Allen and a Super Bowl caliber Bills team, to me, now you become the team to beat given everything that's happening around them in that division with the 49ers leaking oil, with the Cardinals kind of inconsistent throughout the course of the year. We're going to find out about the Bills, how seriously they are in that AFC hierarchy we just talked about, and how legitimately the Seahawks' chances of winning the division are based on how they play out this week.
Right. And the Seahawks, if they do this coming off of a win against a pretty good Falcons team, they're starting to stack good wins. The 49ers don't really have a lot of good wins right now, except the Seahawks win. Watch out for the Bills. I think they're an amazing team. They really play with their food. They really play the first quarter of a Bills game. The Eagles are hard to watch in the first quarter. Let's be blunt. Before first quarter, like what is happening? The Cardinals are running up leads on you. The Titans are running up leads on you. What is happening? I think that's a problem the Bills have to solve as well. It's like come out and not just start strong, but start out not horrible in the first quarter of these games, and then we can look at you and say, yeah, you remain a threat to those other teams atop the AFC.
Mike, what's coming up on the Two Deep Zone later this week?
It is tank watch time again, and we are trolling the New England Patriots. Jared Mayo seems a little upset with his team. Bill Belichick seems a little mad with Jared Mayo. There's a lot to talk about. Drake May has had some pretty good moments here, but what else does this team have to do to be relevant again sometime in our lifetimes? What do you got?
Look forward to reading that. I have some NFL trade deadline preview coming up over the next couple of days, couple of weeks in terms of the deals that executives would make if they were in the general manager's chair, the teams that should be the most active at the deadline. So it should be a lot of fun, should be a lot of entertaining and informative reads there. A little bit of housekeeping before we get out of here. Thanks again to Andre Williams for joining the show. Be sure you subscribe to Mike Tanier's Two Deep Zone on Substack. Be sure you subscribe to my Between the Hashmarks on Substack as well. And if you enjoy the podcast, go ahead and subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us a 5-star review. Those 5-star reviews really help grow the show. They help other people find us, push us up the algorithm. And if you leave us a 5-star review and rating, we'll read the review on the podcast next week. You can even rip us, roast us, whatever you want to do. We will read it. Mike, enjoy the games this weekend.
You too, man.